Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Income is the Outcome, where we believe it's not how much you earn, it's how much you keep. I'm your host, Kristin, and I'm joined in the studio by the founder and president of the Whistler Agency, Tim Whistler. We're so glad you're joining us today. Today's title is very interesting. The show we have for you is called Zero is the Hero, Winning by Not Losing. You're definitely going to want to not miss what Tim has to share on how you can make sure you can protect your retirement accounts and the savings that you've worked so hard to accumulate throughout your life. Tim, my friend, always good to be here with you. How are you this week?
I'm well, Kristin. It's always great to be here back in the studio with you again today. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Well, I know you came up with this awesome idea for today's show, and I'm going to be referencing my notes because I want to make sure that I honor everything that you have for us today. And I think as we start off, what we wanted to just remind folks is a lot of times we won't even remember what we ate for lunch yesterday or what was the last movie we saw in a theater. But I think all of us can potently remember where we were in 2008 when so many folks' 401ks became 201ks and folks suffered massive losses with their retirement accounts. That also, just caused so many people to have to rearrange their entire lives. I mean, and not for the better, right? A lot of people had to go back to work and were really suffering from these losses. So you have this hero that you're going to be talking about today. Zero is the hero. But before we get into that, let's just revisit the two key phases that come into play when someone is planning for their retirement, because we have the accumulation and we have the distribution.
That's exactly right. And I like to kind of use this mountain climbing analogy, if you will, to again revisit the two phases of your financial life. The accumulation phase, again, that's the time frame from which you're earning income from a job. And you're walking up this mountain, trying to climb this mountain to get to the mountain peak, which is called retirement. That's then when we put that flag at the peak of that mountain and celebrate we are done with all those years of working. Now we're going to retire. But now we transition into the distribution phase of life. This is now where you take all of those assets that you worked, saved, and sacrificed to build for all those years. And now they are going to play a very key role in funding the retirements that you want to have. So, we walk through and just help identify some of the challenges that may be lurking, because not everybody's going to share with us every single challenge that's out there, because they're not even aware that some of them even exist.
Right, yeah.
So we just kind of like make sure we understand, okay, here's kind of maybe the big challenge that you faced during your working years, which was simply saving enough. That was the biggest one.
Yeah.
How much can we save while we still need to pay for our bills, get the kids through college, pay for weddings, etc.
Right.
Now you step into the distribution phase of life. Now things shift a little bit, because now we're taking distributions from the assets, hence the phase, distribution phase. So here comes a slew of different types of challenges that we're like, I never heard of that before. And that makes sense because it's a different phase of life. So when we go through this new phase of life and identify the challenges that people face, we're focused in on ROI, but there also needs to be a different focus on a different ROI in the distribution phase of life.
Okay, this is what I'm really excited for our viewers to hear, because ROI, I think there's an acronym a lot of folks are familiar with, meaning return on investment. But you just said there's a different kind of ROI. So what is that needs to be paid attention to?
So, I've dropped a little hints throughout the time we've been doing this together. The name is in the show, Income is the Outcome. It's on my book. So when we get into retirement, the ROI is all about reliability of income. ROI, reliability of income. So by having that shift in mindset about, okay, we are no longer focused in on building wealth. It's a different time of life. These assets are now critical to funding the retirement that you have dreamed of for all these years. Therefore, we're going to focus in on reliability of income, not so much return on investment.
I love that you phrase it that way, because again, it really is all about income. It's not so much about that lump sum you've accumulated, although that can play a factor, but rather than the ability to take that lump sum of wealth and turn it into that reliable ongoing income that's going to last you throughout the rest of your life, right?
That's exactly right. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think a lot of folks, in hearing this discussion might think, well, I'm good because I know that I've never been supposed to put all my eggs in one basket and I have a diversified portfolio. But why is that often not enough? And I think this ties into how folks define diversification too, right?
Exactly. And I think if we took a survey of 100,000 people, whatever the number is, 100 people, 1,000 people, in between, I think most people will say kind of what you said before, Kristin. We're not putting all of our eggs in one basket. Okay, so we should be okay, because What does diversification mean? We're trying to hedge against losses. Okay, so let's talk about the 3 most common indexes that you're familiar with. The S&P 500, the Dow Jones 30, the NASDAQ 100. 500, 30, 100. That means different holdings from different companies.
Right.
Have we fulfilled the definition of diversification? I think so. But does diversification mean safety? It doesn't. Kristin brought up the intro that I think a lot of us remember what happened in 2008. 401k, 201k. You're diversified, but doesn't mean you're safe.
Right.
So when we get into this time of life, it does not mean that what you have been doing to this point is wrong. You're in a different phase of life. The portfolio has got to adjust to come into this phase, to successfully navigate this phase, just as successful as you were building the wealth. We now want to make sure we're successful in distributing the wealth. So therefore, we need to focus in on income.
Yep.
And we need to focus more on having a balanced portfolio
Yes.
as opposed to just a diversified portfolio.
Well, and as you were talking, I thought of another question to ask you, and that is that sometimes I know folks think they're diversified because they've got multiple accounts or multiple mutual funds, for example, right?
Yep.
But when they come in to meet with you and you pull back the curtain and you see what's really under the hood, so to speak, is it true that a lot of times folks actually aren't as diversified as they think they are?
That's exactly right, because we have been sharing this with folks for a number of years. We talk about the illusion of diversification that Wall Street creates. So I don't want to go nerd mode on anybody today and get too deep in the conversation, but basically what Wall Street has kind of done is they've said, okay, you know, Bob and Mary, you're getting closer to retirement, so you probably need to shift some things around a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to go a little bit heavier on bonds and less on equities, for example. Okay, that's fine. Maybe that helps maybe offset some of the volatility. But my next question would be, can bond funds also lose dollars?
Yes, they can. We saw that in 2022, right?
We sure did. I mean,
Yeah.
you look back at pick any bond fund that's out there, and I'm not trying to pick on any one type of investment. That's not my point.
Sure, right.
But the point of it is, Wall Street creates the illusion of diversification, does not mean we're any more safer than we were before. And I think that's where sometimes people get surprised
Yep.
with losses.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I know the inspiration for this concept of zero is the hero was birthed out of an awesome story that you've shared with me about a woman named Judy. And this is a real life story. Based on one decision she made, she was able to save her account from losing thousands of dollars, whereas her friends who did something different are still trying to recover from those losses. So I'd love for you to share that story with our viewers, because I think it will do a really good job of tying together everything we've already talked about.
One of my favorite books that I've come across through my professional career was a book written by the gentleman by the name of Patrick Kelly. And he's written several books. One of this particular books he's written is called Stress-Free Retirement. I don't know how many copies, Kristin, and I have given out of that book prior to my book being written.
Yeah.
Powerful story. He does a great job of talking about it, but I really want to zero in on the story of Judy, because even when I gave that book out to folks, I just encouraged them, hey, go to chapter 2, read the 4 pages about the story of Judy. And basically, here's how it goes. So this is a real life story that was told to Patrick from another advisor from a client named Judy.
Okay.
She was in her early 70s. Picture her to be about, 5 foot, 5'1", kind of, stock market warrior. She's good. She survived 2000. She's good, right? She's having lunch with a friend of hers. And this friend just went and saw this new advisor. And the way he kind of adjusted her portfolio for this new time of her life known as retirement, she was excited about this. So she shares this with Judy.
Okay.
And she basically said, I've got a portion of my dollars that are now forever protected from market volatility. So I don't ever have to stress about when is another 2000 coming and how long will it last. And Judy's like, yeah, you're fine. You don't need that stuff. I'm good. I don't need that stuff. They kept talking through different conversations. Finally, Judy's like, okay, I'll go see your guy. What's his phone number? Goes in, sits down with him, kind of intrigued by what he had to share with her. Goes back in, says, okay, let's go ahead and maybe protect a few of these dollars, and we'll put this in the same bucket that you helped my friend with. Perfect. We fast forward a year, right? Markets were still doing very, 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 very well. That portion of dollars that Judy had shared with this new advisor had done very well. So the advisor himself is getting ready for Judy's first visit, that first annual checkup.
Right.
He's excited because he knows she's made money.
Yep.
She comes in and she's has melancholy. She's not really too excited about this thing. He's like, well, maybe this isn't starting off too good. Has the conversation. He's like, you just made X amount of dollars. This is what was the percent of your return.
Right.
And now, this is your new bottom line. In other words, your original principal created this interest rate, and now your current account value is now locked in. This is now your new balance.
Right.
And she's like, okay, that's fine. He goes, you do understand what we're saying here, Judy? He goes, yeah, but the stock market did this, I only got this. And he says, again, this is not designed to compete with the stock market. It's designed to protect you from the stock market,
right,
while giving you the opportunity to participate in the stock market.
Yeah.
She says, I understand what you're saying, but I'm too old to do any cartwheels. It is what it is, okay? So that ended the first meeting.
Okay.
We fast forward to the next year, which ironically enough was 2008. We all know what happened. The time of Judy's meeting arrives. The advisor gets a statement, and guess what? She made no money in that year. So he's thinking, holy cow, how is this meeting gonna go? Because I know what her reaction was in 07 where she made money. Now she earned nothing. In walks Judy, carrying a plate of brownies.
Oh my goodness.
So he's watching this through his office door. She sets the plate of brownies down on the desk, gives his receptionist a big, huge hug, sees him, makes a beeline for him, gives him a big, huge hug. This advisor's a little bit taller than she is, and he looks down, they make eye contact, and he can see that Judy's got a little bit of tears in her eyes. And he's like, Judy, help me understand something here.
Right.
Last year we came in here and you made a good percentage of return your first year. This year, you come in here
and you made nothing.
You made nothing.
Right.
But I get a hug and a plate of brownies. Can you help me understand?
Yeah.
And this was the whole point of this story. She said, I am so thankful my friend told me about you, and I'm so thankful you shared this product with me for a portion of my dollars. Because of the fact that I have friends out there who've not only lost money from the 2008 collapse, they've lost a lot of money. But I still have my principal, and I still have last year's gains protected safely inside this vehicle, and that's why I'm so thankful I met you, and that's what the plate of brownies are for.
Wow. And that is the definition of zero being the hero. She made zero money and yet could not have been more grateful or thankful and happy with the result, right?
That's exactly what it's designed to do. It's again, it's that product that's we call the fixed indexed annuity. It's one of the members of the annuity family. It's not the right fit for everybody, but again, when we run through that customized written financial plan and assess a portfolio, and we know that we need a certain percentage of our assets designed to protect from volatility and create income, that can possibly be a good fit, and that's the reaction that we see quite often when markets decide to go down.
Well, no doubt folks who are watching who remember having lived through 08, and maybe you yourself are watching and you're at a season where you're getting ready to retire, you're thinking about your own retirement, and you know you can't afford to suffer those large losses, and you're like, you know what? Maybe zero is a good thing. Maybe I can win by not losing. If someone's having those thoughts and wants to be shown how they can do that in their own life, what would you say?
We are going to set up what we call a Get Acquainted conversation. So if you look at the phone number on your screen or scan the QR code, you'll be directed to a member of our team. They'll share our calendar with you. You can find a time that fits your availability. Even if you're still working and an evening appointment is what you need to talk, where you need to meet with us, that's fine. We'll meet in the evening time. That's perfectly fine. And then what we're going to do is we're going to basically just take an assessment. We want you to kind of share with us what your ideal retirement looks like. We'll start looking at the portfolio. We'll provide you with an initial analysis. That's your customized written financial plan, just to make sure, again, that we can fulfill the reliability of income for your retirement lifestyle.
Wonderful. Tim, thank you so much. I can't wait to hear what you have to say for the rest of today's show. This has been jam-packed so far, but if this is resonating with you, if you want to have a plan solid in place to make sure that you can be confident that you're not going to potentially lose lots of money when market volatility hits, we encourage you to reach out to the team of the Whistler Agency and receive your very own complimentary written financial plan. That number to call is there on the bottom of your screen, 888-992-7829. Or you're welcome to scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. We'll be back with more right after this.
When was the last time you saw your financial professional? Are you getting the most out of the strategy that was created for you? Although you've done a great job finding someone to help plan for your future, are you 100% sure that you were given the right strategy? We can help answer these questions and more with a complimentary second opinion evaluation. We will take a look at what you have in place and then help determine if you're well positioned to get the most out of your future retirement income. In the event that it is not, we can help by making suggestions and showing you how to get on the right path. You wouldn't get just one opinion when it comes to a major health decision, so why would you treat your most important financial decision with such disregard? Call today for your no-cost, no-obligation second opinion evaluation to see if you're getting the most out of your retirement income plan.
Do you own an annuity? Are you aware of what type of annuity you own? For years, annuities have been a cornerstone of retirement planning, but they're not all created equal, and your current annuity might not be serving your retirement goals. With rising interest rates, that could mean better guarantees and better benefits for you. In short, potentially more income. Is your annuity up to date? See if your old annuity measures up. Call now for your complimentary annuity review.
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. After nearly a lifetime on the job, you should be rewarded for all the time you spent working. Whether that's crossing off items on your bucket list, learning a new passion, or rekindling the love of an old one. After all, life isn't over when you stop working. It's the start of an all-new chapter. The one where you're the writer and you get to choose how your story will go. A way to achieve that is by having a clear financial plan to sustain your golden years. The biggest fear most retirees have is if they'll have enough money to maintain the lifestyle they've always enjoyed. Having a plan to help protect you against the curveballs life often throws will help to maintain your lifestyle. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
Welcome back to Income is the Outcome. I'm Kristin Oakley here with Tim Whistler, and today we are discussing Zero is the Hero, how you can win by not losing. And if you're just joining us, Tim just shared a very powerful real-life story of a woman named Judy who, by putting those strategies into place, was able to avoid losing large amounts of money when the market had extreme volatility back in 2008. And we know that that is a stress and a fear that a lot of folks have. This is why you said earlier, too, that success in retirement is not about the return on investment, but rather that reliable, ongoing income that can last you throughout the rest of your life. And so this is what we have to talk about. We have to help folks understand the problem that market volatility has for them, especially in this new season of transition. And a lot of, I think, the confusion around this comes from the fact that we don't think typically in terms of percentage math. But that makes all the difference when it comes to account losses. So I'd love for you to kind of walk our viewers through just the math of it all and why these large losses can be so detrimental.
I think just to put this into perspective, if you want to grab a pen and paper at home and get ready for this so you can do the math after Kristin and I are done talking about this, is understanding that when there's a loss, what does the gain need to be to get back to where you were? Now keep in mind, we're talking about this without taking withdrawals, right? We're just talking pure math. So for example, if you have an account value that goes down by 10%, you need an 11% gain to get back to where you were.
Okay.
If it goes down by 20%, you have to realize a 25% gain to get back to where you were. Okay, I've got two more.
Okay.
A 30% loss, 2008.
Yep.
You need a 43% gain to get back to where you were.
Get back to even, essentially.
Get back to even, that's exactly right. And the last one, if you lost 50% of your money, you need 100% to get back to where you were. So I'm going to use that, just say you've got $10,000 somewhere and it goes down by 50%, right? That's $5,000. How much do you need on $5,000 to get back to $10,000? You need $5,000, you need 100% of it. That's where this is the problem with the industry. It does not do a good job of educating us on that. We get so caught up in averages that I think we need to really understand the impact of the significant amount of loss that can happen and what has to happen to get you back to where you were before. And again, we're not talking about withdrawals yet, but that's what we do in retirement.
Right, so when you've mentioned withdrawals, the key is not only could you be suffering that loss, but now you're withdrawing money from that account, which is depleting it even more, which means that percentage would need to be even higher to try to get back to even, right? That's the compounded issue. That is the compounded issue. And as I mentioned before at the beginning of the show, we talked about the mountain analogy. As we come down through the distribution phase, and I use the comment about there's going to be a multitude of challenges out there. One of them is what you call sequence of returns risk. That might be new to you. That's okay. It's new to a lot of people because it did not matter in your accumulation phase when you're building wealth. But now when you start taking distributions from your assets for income that you need for retirement, you automatically usher in this challenge that's called sequence of returns risk. It doesn't mean you've not done anything wrong. This is pure math. So the best way we know how to explain this is we need to break down the difference between
average rate of return, and actual rate of return. So just with us talking here without any type of visual aid, let's just picture two different accounts.
Okay.
There's 10 years performance, okay? The first bucket of money has its certain order of performance, gains, losses, et cetera, and it's in a certain order. The second bucket of money, let's use the same numbers, but let's reverse the order.
Okay.
So the first 10 years went 1 through 10, the second bucket went 10 through 1, if you will, okay?
Yes.
At the end of the story, at the end of 10 years, both account values both had the exact same average rate of return, right?
Yep.
It's the same numbers, just in a different order.
Yes.
You take that same analogy, now you start taking withdrawals. And when you take withdrawals in retirement. Depending upon when you retire, if you retire in a bear market, when the markets are volatile, and if those first few years of retirement, when you're taking withdrawals, while the market's going down in value, losing 10, 20%, whatever the numbers are, you actually could outlive that bucket of money because you may never recover because of the two things that are happening. The loss of the account value due to market volatility,
right,
and the withdrawals you're taking out. You look at the other bucket of money. If it's a bull market, the market's doing well, we're having some gains, you probably won't touch principal for a little while, right? The whole point of it is the averages don't matter, it's the actual returns that matter in retirement, and we have to have a plan in place where we have what we call a volatility buffer to create maybe some scenarios where maybe a zero is the hero for that year because it protected you from volatility.
You know, and it's the timing. I mean, you said this, but just to stress that for our viewers, it's not just the losses that they occur, but it's when they occur that is so crucial. And we can't control that. We know the market's only going to do one of two things, right? It's going to go up, it's going to go down. The worst thing that can happen is if you are suffering those large losses, especially right at the beginning of your retirement, because you may never, as you said, be able to make up those losses. So if we tie this concept back into the story of Judy that you shared, right? Let's talk about how the fact that her account that year receiving a zero despite the market correction was so beneficial. So again, just if you're just tuning in and maybe they didn't hear that story, why don't you just remind viewers what was so crucial about her situation?
What was so crucial about that was the fact that in her second year of owning this fixed index annuity, the market went down. So therefore, we have a position of an indexed, of an annuity. We have those dollars in indexes that are tied to the market, but because they lost value, her net result was a zero.
Meaning she didn't lose any money, but she didn't earn anything, but she didn't lose, and that's the zero that we're talking about.
Her original principal and her first year's gains were protected. She had the exact same dollar amount in her second year that she had in her first year.
Yeah.
That's the 0-0. So why did that happen? Well, the characteristics of a fixed index annuity is exactly what it says in its title. Fixed, zero volatility.
Right.
Indexed, we can participate in the market, but we are protected from the market.
Right.
So therefore, so then Tim, how do we earn some interest inside of a fixed index annuity? Well, there's a couple different ways. We have an offering from those insurance companies where there's a fixed rate. There can be an indexed rate. So we get some of the up, but we avoid all of the down. But again, the beautiful thing, Kristin, is that every time that policy has an anniversary, if that index is up, that interest gets credited to that account value, and that's your new bottom line. You never are going down, therefore you never have to recover like we talked about during the accumulation phase, as opposed to being in the distribution phase.
Yeah, and that's such a beautiful thing for folks to think about who are concerned and wanting to protect themselves from something like 2008 happening again, specifically, and let me get that out correctly, if they're trying to retire right at that point in time.
Yep, it's just, again, it's one of the things where what phase of life are you in? That bucket of money needs to be allocated based upon, are we building wealth? Are we distributing wealth? And again, when we're distributing wealth, zero can be the hero because, again, the ROI during this phase of your life is reliability of income. So if we can implement a strategy that we use for a portion of our funds, again, we still honor the old adage, don't put all your eggs in one basket. You don't want to have all your money in the stock market. You don't want to have all your money in the CD. You don't want to have all your money in indexed annuities. You need to have a balanced portfolio.
Yeah.
And now when you do that, you have what we call a volatility buffer. Because now when markets are down and we still need to take a withdrawal, we now can choose between what bucket we want to take from.
Right.
If the market's up, we get to pick what bucket we want to pull from.
Yes.
So it's just a great complement to an overall portfolio that's geared towards that retirement lifestyle known as the distribution phase.
Tim, thank you for doing such a great job of explaining that. And if you are watching and going, you know what, I need to figure this out for myself. I need to make sure that I have that volatility buffer in place. This is something you can discuss with Tim when you come in and receive your complimentary written financial plan. To book yours, simply call 888-992-7829. Or again, you're welcome to scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. We'll be back with more right after this.
When interest rates are low, you might be able to refinance your home, your car, and even your credit cards. Yet when interest rates go up, it may make sense to refinance your retirement. Higher interest rates could provide income opportunities you may not be aware of. What works for your portfolio during low interest rates may not work for you when interest rates are high. Call today for your complimentary Refi Your Retirement review. As individuals, we strive for better, from a better house, to a better career, to a better life for our kids. But when it comes time to your retirement, what does better mean to you? More income, a flexible lifestyle, better solutions. A better retirement begins with a plan. To get your complimentary written financial plan, call the number you see here. You only retire once. This is your opportunity to plan for better.
Welcome back to Income is the Outcome. Today's show has been all about why zero is the hero, how you can win by not losing, especially during volatile markets. Tim, I want to go back to something you said earlier, which was the difference between having a diversified portfolio and a balanced portfolio. Can you define that difference for our viewers?
Absolutely. So again, trying to get away from the old adage of how Wall Street defines diversification, we need to have balance in our portfolio. So think in terms of three simple characteristics. Safety, growth, and liquidity. If there was a product out there that offered all three, I think we're probably talking about something different besides retirement income planning.
Right.
Because we'd have all of our money there.
Right.
But that doesn't exist. But what does exist is how we can pair those off. So we have a bucket of money that's safe and it can grow, but maybe it's not as liquid.
Right.
So if we need money immediately, that might not be our go-to. Then we have a bucket of money where it can grow and it's liquid, but it doesn't have the element of safety. So there's a little bit of risk involved. So how much should we have in that bucket? Finally, we have that bucket that's safe and it's liquid, but it's not really earmarked for growth. Like for example, when you need to have an emergency fund account, you maybe want to have some dollars on a money market account. Those dollars are accessible. They might not be geared for growth. The point of it is when you have your allocated portfolio balanced across those different characteristics, now you truly have arrived to the definition of having a balanced portfolio.
Yeah.
Now that'll help sustain that ROI in retirement called reliability of income. And this is what we put together for folks when we provide you with that customized written financial plan.
This has been so informative, so beneficial, so much great information. Tim, thank you. And I know that the best way for our viewers to take advantage of this is by coming in and sitting down, looking at your personal situation, making sure you have a balanced portfolio to meet your needs and that you are protected from potential market losses. That number to call to schedule your complimentary meeting is 888-992-7829, and you will walk away with that complimentary written financial plan in your hands. Be safe, be happy, be blessed, and we look forward to being back with you next time here on Income is the Outcome.